I'm not really good at telling stories or anything, but what happened to me 6 months ago, I still think about it every single day. I was doing Doordash back then, you know? Just trying to make some extra money. My car was making this weird noise whenever I turned left, but I couldn't afford to fix it yet. I had been delivering for about 6 months when I got this order. Chinese food from that place on 5th Street. The one with the faded sign that's been there forever. Nothing special about the order itself. Just some lo mein and egg rolls, but the address... Man, the address led me to this apartment complex I'd never seen before. It was on the outskirts of town, past the old gas station that's been closed for years. You know the one. Still has those ancient pumps out front. The complex looked like it hadn't been maintained in decades. Half the unit numbers had fallen off, and the parking lot was covered in broken glass. I remember stepping over a rusted shopping cart someone had just left there. The customer left specific instructions in the app. Don't knock, leave food by door marked with red X. I thought it was weird, but people leave strange instructions all the time. Sometimes they're sleeping, or they have a baby, or whatever. I found the door easily enough. Someone had spray painted this crude red X right across the peeling paint. The paint was still kind of wet looking, like it had been done recently. As I bent down to set the bag of takeout by the door, I noticed this smell. Sweet and rotten. Like meat that's been left in the sun too long. I tried to breathe through my mouth, but the smell was so strong it made my eyes water. That's when I heard it through the thin walls. What sounded like muffled sobbing. Quiet, but definitely there. My first thought was maybe someone was watching a sad movie or something. But then I remembered my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She always cries when she watches those soap operas. This didn't sound like that. This sounded different. More desperate, I guess. I know the instructions said not to knock, but I was worried. What if someone was hurt? I knocked anyway, just a gentle tap. The crying stopped immediately. Like, completely. Dead silence. Then I heard footsteps approaching the door. Slow, deliberate steps. But the door never opened. Instead, this voice whispered, through the wood, "Thank you for feeding us." The way they said "us" made my skin crawl. It was drawn out like they were savoring the word. And the voice, it didn't sound right. Too deep, too gravelly. Like someone who'd been screaming for hours. I got out of there fast. Forgot about the delivery photo. Forgot about everything. Just ran back to my car with that weird left turn noise and drove home. I remember I had to stop at a red light, and my hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. The next morning, I was eating cereal, that generic brand stuff because I was broke, when I saw it on the news. Police had discovered 3 missing persons in an apartment complex on the outskirts of town. The reporter said they were all malnourished and showing signs of prolonged captivity. The apartment had been vacant for 2 years, according to the landlord. I recognized the building immediately. Same broken glass in the parking lot. Same rusty shopping cart. I never found out who placed that order. The account was deleted from the app by the time I checked. Customer service said they had no record of it, like it never happened. But I know it did. I can still smell that sweet, rotten smell sometimes. Usually when I'm trying to fall asleep, and I never took another delivery order after dark. The strange part is what happened afterward. Little things started bothering me in ways they never had before. A shadow moving wrong across my bedroom wall. The sound of my refrigerator humming in a rhythm that seemed almost like whispered words. My neighbor's dog barking at exactly 3:17 a.m. every night for 2 weeks straight, then stopping completely. I began noticing delivery drivers differently, too. The way they'd linger at doorsteps just a second too long. How some would glance over their shoulders before walking away. Once, I saw a Pizza Hut driver standing motionless beside his car for nearly 5 minutes, just staring at an apartment door. When I blinked, he was gone. I quit Doordash 2 weeks later. Got a job at the hardware store downtown instead. Say, pays worse, but at least I know everyone who walks through that door. At least I hope I do. Sometimes I wonder if those people are grateful I brought them that food. If somehow, in that moment of horror, I accidentally did something right. But mostly, I try not to think about it at all. Because when I do, I remember that voice saying "us," and I realize I never counted how many footsteps I heard approaching that door. This happened about 6 months ago. I still think about it sometimes when I'm driving late at night. Maybe I shouldn't have taken that delivery, but you know how it is when you need the money. I'd been doing food delivery for about 2 years. At that point, nothing too crazy, just trying to pay off some student loans. The job was pretty boring most of the time, until that Tuesday night in March. The order came in around 9:30 p.m. Family meal from Romano's, you know, that Italian place near the mall. 3 large pizzas, some breadsticks, sodas. Pretty normal stuff. The address was on Maple Street, which I knew pretty well. Nice neighborhood, big houses with those perfect lawns. I delivered to the Hendersons before, maybe 3 or 4 times, over the past year. But when I pulled up to their house, something felt different. The lawn was all overgrown, which was weird because Mrs. Henderson was always out there gardening. There were newspapers scattered on the driveway, some still in plastic bags, and all the windows were dark. Not just dark like everyone's asleep, but empty dark. You know what I mean? I sat in my car for a minute, engine running. Part of me wanted to just call the customer and tell them I couldn't find the house. But the porch light was on, so maybe they were just, I don't know, having a quiet night or something. I grabbed the food and walked up to the front door. The doorbell didn't work. I could hear it was broken when I pressed it, so I knocked instead. The door opened immediately, like before I even finished knocking. This woman stood there, and I'd never seen her before. She was maybe 40, but looked older. Her hair was all messy, like she'd been running her hands through it. She was wearing this old bathrobe, and her eyes, they kept darting around, never really looking at me. "Food delivery," I said, holding up the bags. She grabbed them from me without saying anything. Then she shoved this wad of cash into my hand. I looked down and it was way too much. Like $60 for a $30 order. This is too much," I started to say, but she was already closing the door. That's when I heard it. Kids crying. Not like normal crying when you're upset about something. This was desperate. Scared crying. Coming from somewhere inside the house. The woman must have seen my face change because she stopped closing the door. "They're just upset about dinner being late," she said quickly, but her voice was shaky. I stood there for a second, listening. The crying continued, and it sounded like more than one kid. Maybe 2 or 3. And they sounded, I can't explain it right. Like they were trying to cry quietly but couldn't help it. "Is everything okay? In there?" I asked. She snapped at me then. "Mind your own business and leave." And she slammed the door. I walked back to my car, but I couldn't shake this feeling. My mom always told me to trust my gut, and my gut was telling me something was really wrong. The crying, the woman I'd never seen before, the condition of the house, none of it made sense. I called the restaurant when I got back to my car, asked them about the Henderson family if they'd been ordering from us lately. The manager told me something that made my hands go cold. "Oh, the Hendersons? Their workplace called us 3 days ago, asking if we'd heard from them. They never showed up for work, and no one's seen them since." I hung up and called 911 immediately, told them everything. The strange woman, the crying kids, the missing family. The dispatcher said they'd send someone right away. I waited in my car until the police arrived. 2 officers went up to the house and knocked. No answer. They knocked again, louder. Still nothing. One of them walked around to the back while the other tried the front door. It was unlocked. They went inside and came out about 10 minutes later. The house was empty. No sign of the woman I'd talked to. No sign of any kids. Just empty. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. 2 days later, I saw it on the news. The Henderson family had been found dead in their basement. All 4 of them. The parents and their 2 young kids. The coroner said they'd been dead for over a week. Over a week. I delivered food to that house. I talked to someone. I heard children crying. The police never figured out who ordered the food that night. The phone number was disconnected. The credit card was reported stolen weeks earlier. I quit delivering food the next day. Got a job at a warehouse instead. Better hours, better pay. But sometimes when I'm driving past that neighborhood, I still slow down when I get to Maple Street. The house is empty now. Has been for months. There's a for sale sign in the yard, but it never seems to sell. I've never told anyone this story except my girlfriend, and she thinks I was just stressed out or something. Maybe she's right. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. But I still have that $60. I never spent it. And sometimes, late at night, I can still hear those kids crying. My name is Ronan Miller. I lived in Cedar Falls. I used to deliver food for a living, pizza, Chinese, whatever, for about 2 years before I had to stop. And I mean had to stop. Look, I'm not the smartest guy. I barely finished high school, and my girlfriend always said I don't notice things. But even I picked up on stuff that didn't feel right. It started with one house on Maple Street. Nice place, nothing fancy. I'd bring Thai food every Tuesday and Friday like clockwork. Pad, Thai and spring rolls. I never saw the customer. Never. They'd leave an envelope taped to the door with exact change and a note saying, "Leave food on mat, thanks." I thought it was weird, but whatever. Then I noticed a tiny camera tucked inside their porch light. Not a doorbell camera everyone has now. This was smaller, hidden, pointed right where I'd stand. I began looking around on deliveries and found more cameras. Way more. The house on Oak Street with the broken mailbox had one hidden in a fake owl on the fence. The apartment complex on 3rd Avenue concealed one behind the no soliciting sign. The blue house where an old lady supposedly lived but I never saw had a camera disguised as a sprinkler head. I counted 15 houses total across different neighborhoods, and I never met the customers face to face. The instructions grew weirder. Knock 3 times and wait 30 seconds before leaving food. Stand on the X marked on the porch. Call if you don't see it. They made me stay in place longer. My hands shook when making these deliveries. I felt, watched from windows, probably was. Nights I lay awake, replaying every knock, every odd instruction, wondering who watched and why. I told my manager, he laughed. Security cameras are normal. Hidden ones? Paranoid, he said. If I didn't like it, quit. But I needed money, car payment, rent behind. My anxiety worsened, but I forced myself to work, convincing myself it was nothing. Serious and stress kept me up at night. The breaking point came one rainy Thursday night. I was at the Thai food house on Maple Street when I slipped on their wet porch. As I got up, I saw something small and black. A memory card, likely fallen from their camera. I should have left it, but curiosity won. At home, I plugged it into my laptop. The folder held hundreds of video files of delivery drivers, pizza, Chinese food, grocery, all of us. But worse were other videos mixed in. Footage of drivers at their homes, getting into cars and driveways I recognized, walking up to doors not in orders. One showed a driver I knew, Tommy, sitting in his living room watching TV. Someone had followed us, learned where we lived, recorded our personal lives. Panic surged. I felt violated, terrified of what they might do with that footage. I unplugged the laptop so fast I almost broke the USB port. I grabbed clothes and drove to my sister's, place 3 towns over. I didn't pack properly, forgot my phone charger and wore the same shirt for days. I barely spoke, haunted by images of cameras hidden everywhere. I never went back for my last paycheck. Changed my number and moved in with my sister permanently. I got a warehouse job where I don't go to random houses. Sometimes I think about how those hidden lenses might still be active, catching new drivers unaware. I imagine strangers watching, studying every move, planning something beyond my dread. I consider reporting it, but without evidence or the memory card, it feels impossible. I just hope whoever collected those videos never found what they were really looking for.